What's cooking, folks? Vermillion Phoenix here, and today we're talking about fire traps and Orcs Must Die Unchained. This will be a short video relatively covering all of the fire items in this particular loadout. What you're not going to see any of is the firewall bracers or any of the other two fire damage dealing heroes, which are Zoe and Tundra. Mainly it's to go over the basic idea of what fire traps do and a few details, although not the specifics, of some of the fire traps. First would be the burn effect, which is the status effect that fire damage gets to deal to enemies. You set an enemy on fire for 4.2 seconds, and over this duration a percentage of the total fire damage that will be dealt by the attack is dealt. For the majority of things that deal fire damage, all of this damage is dealt via this burn effect, and there's no upfront damage. This is a little bit different with the heroes because they deal a burst of fire damage with their attacks, and then the burn effect does a fraction of that damage over the burn duration. So while this may make it seem like fire damage is not quite that powerful up front just because there's not a lot of feedback on the damage just happening immediately, they can stack multiple burn effects from different sources, and this makes fire damage deceptively powerful in some cases. It's important to understand when to use certain fire traps, and that's something that I can't really cover immediately because it would require some very specific knowledge of, certain maps. But either way, I do want to talk about some of the charges, because charge traps make up half of the fire traps available in the game right now. Here you'll see the Firecracker, and the other charge trap is the Brimstone. The main difference is the amount of damage per charge and the shape and cost of the trap, but in function they're pretty much the same. Each time an enemy walks across, they deplete a charge, and then they take the trap's damage over the burn duration. This is good, but you will want to make sure that you don't place another trap of the same type within that period of space that the enemy is going to be on fire, because if you do, you essentially waste some of the trap's damage. Also, those traps have an extremely slow recharge rate. It's about 7 seconds per charge during the course of a wave, and that makes it so that they will not be able to continuously deal damage. They effectively act as burst damage traps and don't recharge almost ever throughout the course of a wave, so they can get depleted very quickly. Here is just a quick demonstration of the Naptha. If you want to rewind, you'll see that the difference in damage goes from 24 points to about 33 per tick. That's an increase of about 37.5%. Now, there may be a little bit of issue with the precision of that, mainly because you would need to see numbers closer to 100 to get the exact percentage out, but that's relatively close to where I expect it to be. I assumed that it was somewhere around 40%. Nothing too high, but that means that Naptha really isn't going to shine without at least 2 fire traps and a fire hero, which is nice because Smolder generally should be using a few fire traps if you're going to bring the Naptha, and it's synergized as well with the way the hero themselves does damage. Either way, I'm going to wrap this video up with just a quick, finishing up this particular map with a fire trap setup. This is more for just visual effect and to give some examples of the fire traps firing. And you should be able to see the charge-based traps deactivate and then have their cooldowns pretty much off for a long period of time. Pay special attention to the Firecracker, however, though. The Firecracker does have a weird issue with its animation. I'm not sure if it's intended or not yet, but it will light up halfway through its recharge state and not actually start dealing damage until it fully restores the charge, at which point you'll see a little flame coming out of the Firecracker. It's important to understand that it doesn't actually deal any damage until the flames come out, and it has the same recharge time as the Brimstone itself. What I would probably like to happen is for the Brimstone or the Firecracker to become suitable for use in, say, Endless, rather than some of the other traps just significantly overpowering them. They would probably need their recharge time doubled, in my opinion. I mean, I know that they deal comparable damage to some of the other traps, but the overall DPS after they're depleted is significantly lower than the DPS that they provide when they're initially placed. And because in long games, the only way to get them recharged is with the Gnomish Repair Kit or Gabriella and her Kinetic Pulse. This means that a lot of synergy is oddly enough lost when those two things aren't in play. The last trap to go over would be the Spitfire, which fires arrows of flame out of the wall trap, just like the arrow walls do. Only because of the fact that the damage is not able to be dealt in bursts, effectively anything getting hit with the arrows just does a tiny bit more fire damage by refreshing the burn duration, which isn't that bad because the Spitfire appears to pierce, unlike the arrow wall arrows. And this actually makes it a pretty solid trap to use against groups of shielded enemies. But do be aware that when any fire trap is being used, any enemy that has fire armor, which currently include fire fiends and fire ogres, will essentially take reduced damage. I believe that damage is halved, and they take about 50% more damage from ice. So that's really the only downside to fire traps, other than just being able to make sure that the Brimstone and the Firecracker actually get to maintain the fire rates. The Firewall Bracer is an excellent piece of gear, especially when it comes to dealing combos, so I would recommend that if you guys happen to get your hands on that, feel free to make good use of it, and I don't think it'll really let you down. But that should be the majority of this. I'm going to go ahead and let this finish up, and then I'll close it out at the end. Hope you guys enjoy.
They've summoned a boss minion! minion is down.
My assistance was invaluable.
So I hope you guys learned a little bit from this. With the damage type itself basically gone over, I think I can start talking about some of the traps a bit more in depth and the customizations available for them, which is kind of what I plan on doing after I sort of get the first few pieces of ComboLab done. But let me know what you guys think, or if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the description. And as always, until next time, have a good one, folks.